we often find, in fact, it's very common that big industrial houses, big monopoly groups influence the government, influence this or that political party in power to, select which minister should be in which portfolio, what policy decisions should be taken and so on, so that that specific group's interests are protected for that time and somebody else is undercut and so on. That corporate wars are actually fought through influence on the government. So very often this is the source of large-scale corruption and loot of public money. How will the Lokpal actually curb
So there are 2-3 provisions in this. Firstly, of course, as is there in the Prevention of Corruption Act, not only the public servant will be prosecuted, but the corporate group which has corrupted that public servant will also be prosecuted, just as these corporates are being prosecuted in the 2G scam. Secondly, we have put a provision that all contracts and any form of largesse to be given by any public authority must be done transparently by public advertisement and public auction. And if it is not done, unless it cannot be done for reasons to be recorded in writing, in that case the Lokpal authority will be empowered to go into the reasons, and if they find the reasons unjustified, they can prosecute these public servants for corruption, public servants and as well as the corporates for corruption. In addition to that, we are adding another provision that all organizations, whether they are corporations or NGOs or otherwise, which have assets or annual receipts above a certain amount, above a certain figure, which are above a certain size, will be obliged to publicly disclose every quarter their ownership, their management, as well as their sources of funding. All this information would have to be put out on a public website. So these are further measures for ensuring transparency in corporations as well as other private bodies.
And what about public appointments in public or in government and state institutions which have a conflict of interest because of their links with some corporate houses and so on?
There is also a provision that they will, public servants will not be eligible to take up jobs with corporations with whom they have had official dealings while in office. Of course, I must make it clear that everything or this Lokpal bill is designed to deal with the what I call the supply side of corruption, which means to check the supply of corruption by putting in place an effective machinery to prosecute the guilty, to investigate and prosecute the guilty. But one of the sources of corruption today is this sort of massive privatization of public resources, which has been done by the government as a matter of policy. So all that the bill does is to ensure that this will be done transparently. If there is privatization of public resources, it is now mandated to be done transparently and by means of a public auction. But whether it should be done at all or not is a matter of government policy which this bill cannot deal with.
With respect to this corporates again in the 2G scam, for example, like it is broadly estimated that 1,76,000 crores was what was lost by the public exchequer. But in terms of the people who have been apprehended till now, like the ministers and all that, so each one can account for a few hundred crores because they are the final beneficiaries of that. But actually, the ones who benefited most were those who got the license and sold it to others or made maximum profits out of it.
So therefore, in a case like this, like the 2G scam, the trial court would have to ascertain the loss caused to the public exchequer. Suppose it is ascertained to be say 1 lakh crores. then the trial court will have to apportion that loss among the various
Players.
accused persons, whether they are corporates or public servants, and in terms of that apportionment, that loss will be recovered from those public servants. So there is also another provision which says that if a contract is found to be given as a result of corruption, the Lokpal can recommend cancellation of that contract also, revocation of license also. A lot of
This
pressure.
whole argument about creation of such a Lokpal being unconstitutional. So, like, what is your say on that? Like, I mean, should one
So,
actually not consider bodies which actually deal with the flaws in the functioning of the present constitution and its process?
To our mind, this Lokpal bill does not require any constitutional amendment. To our mind, there is nothing in this bill which is against any provision of the constitution. Government has been saying, no, it will require some amendment of Article 105, Article 311. So we are saying that, well, to our mind it does not require any amendment, but if the government feels that some amendment is required in public interest, those constitutional amendments can be made. If you feel that investigating corruption by members of parliament taking cash for votes requires amendment of 105, it should be amended. If you feel that empowering the Lokpal to order removal of public servants found guilty of corruption requires amendment of 311, let that be amended. But to our mind, that those amendments are not required.